Okay, so I'm going to talk about 7 and 9 in Star Trek Voyager, Carl Jung, and Joh Nash in The Beautiful Mind, particularly how he portrayed in that movie. Anyway, and so to make it a little more interesting, I'm also going to be filming it while walking to make it more interesting than just simply sitting and talking about it. Although if I was sitting, I guess I could be like drawing a picture or something. But anyway. So yeah, 7 and 9. I guess we'll start with that. All right, so 7 and 9 she was one of the Borg, which is this group that believes in like technical superior, assimilating different groups, thinking as a hive mind, and just general like being good at stuff and logic and stuff like that, and being real technically advanced. At the beginning of the episode, the episode I'm talking about is particularly this. It's called the Omega Directive. At the beginning of the episode, it shows Harry, Kim, and Tuvok. They're playing this game of Kowtow, Vulcan Kowtow or something like that. And it's kind of like this geometric game with these sticks or something like that. And of course, Tuvok, being a Vulcan, he's super logical himself and everything. And then Harry Kim, he's more of a human aspiring to be like more logical and stuff like that. And then she says, okay, it's time for your duty. And he's like, hold on, Harry. Harry's like, hold on a second while I got to make my move. And then she just kind of effortlessly pulls one and then just causes this kind of geometric kind of like sphere thing to look more ordered and everything, and more like in a nice geometric shape. And I thought that was kind of like almost a theme of like this kind of like the idea of like the crystalline beauty, basically. So just keep that in mind about how certain things are beautiful because they're curved and stuff is more how they are, and some things have more of a crystalline beauty, or more like a beauty that's based on order and symmetry and that sort of thing. And that was a big part of Carl Jung, and where he got off of Voyager, this idea between abstraction and empathy. But in this one, it's the idea of this whole thing focuses more on that 7 and 9. So what she finds is like, well, first of all, like if you don't know Voyager, they're like 70,000 light years from Starfleet. Okay, so they're on their own, but she gets like this signal from the computer, meant only for Janeway, saying, hey, we've detected this Omega molecule in the area, and basically she's supposed to destroy it, and she's not supposed to tell anybody about it, except she tells 7 and 9, because 7 and 9, she knows that being part of the Borg, at some point they assimilated Starfleet officers, and they would have like known about it from that. So she figured, okay, she knew about it anyway. I mean, she made kind of sure she knew about it, and then also that gave her a chance to have 7 and 9 help her destroy it, Anyway, and so 7 and 9 was saying that to her, this Omega molecule is something that the Borg know about, that almost has like mystical abilities, or in a way, or she says it's just to them, like, I mean, she doesn't use those kind of words. That's the whole point that Jane was saying, see, you're really like, you're kind of like religious, even though like you're claiming not to be, or something like that, because she says it's like perfection. It's like it should be used as an energy source, and that the Borgs used up like 600,000 like lives or something like that, trying to of different Borg to try to like assimilate this knowledge. And that the idea is,
one thing I should note is that this molecule is a possible infinite energy source, but it's unstable and actually can destroy the fabric of what they call subspace in Star Trek lore, which is basically like this kind of like extra dimension that makes warp travel possible. So basically, like, they're afraid that, like, well, for them, if there was going to be an explosion of this stuff, that it would make it impossible for them to ever make it back home, or that I guess it would ruin things in other parts of the galaxy. But then, as we see too, there's another species there who's also trying to harvest this Omega molecule as a potential energy source to help save their species.
It's like what did she say? It's like it's perfect in simplicity, but also like infinitely complex, or something about just perfectly ordered. And anyway, it just has this, it goes together just in this perfect kind of geometric, symmetrical beauty that maybe some of us can see. That kind of like, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever got some feeling where you kind of look at some pattern, and you think, oh, you see the pattern, and you can kind of see it throughout the thing, and then it kind of helps you kind of like come up with like a knowledge of the thing. Well, that's sort of like with that feeling of like of that Omega molecule, or that abstract crystalline beauty. Now, that feeling of abstract crystalline beauty. And so basically it goes down to, there's this other race that also wants to harness it as a thing, but Janeway is intent on destroying it. And then at some point, without getting too much of the plot, she says that there was a point where 7 and 9 saw it come on for like, that's another thing. It always usually stays, the molecule, whenever it's been created, it's been found in nature, it only exists for like a very short amount of time. And she said, it lasted like for 3 seconds. He says, it was almost like it was looking back at me. But anyway, that's about it as far as like the crystalline beauty there. But just like someone who recognizes that, that power of the. And then there was another thing where like that lore in that he was helping. Well, anyway, okay, we won't get into that. But there's a thing called the crystalline entity that lore liked. Anyway. So, all right, now let's get into Joh Nash. Now, Joh Nash, I'm basing this more on the movie and not real life, but if you watch the movie, there's a scene like where he all of a sudden has this big revelation. First of all, he wants to find like some mathematical pattern to everything, and he's obsessed with that, this idea of governing dynamics, he says. And there's this part where he comes with this equation. If you see the scene, it's just, I don't know, it just does a really good job of explaining that feeling. I came from like physics, and I'm not saying I got like super far into the world of physics, but enough to kind of get that feeling every once in a while of like, oh yeah, where you really understand some concept, and it's just a beautiful concept that comes together, kind of like almost like a beautiful plan. I like to see a beautiful plan come together, and that's why like a lot of mathematicians might have that kind of feeling at times. The idea of like, there being like some beautiful equation that just explains everything. But it's and so that's the same thing. Like in that Joh Nash part, he has a revelation. Is that one scene then. He comes up with some sort of like basic analogy to explain this basic principle of this one equation having to do with game theory and economic theory and stuff. That then he comes up with all these equations. You just see like, So just the beauty of seeing patterns. That's what it's about. And
Okay, class, let's review. So 7 and 9 and Joh Nash both got lots of enjoyment out of abstract beauty and equations, and then in her case the crystalline beauty of this molecule.
As far as like, I should get a little more, let's just give you a little more definition for anybody who's still watching this at this point about abstraction. So abstraction means that you withdraw like the essential content from a thing, like a certain characteristic. It could be like, like if you do a map where all you show is just the temperature, well, that's an abstraction of reality because all you're focusing is just on one variable, but it might be like what it looks like from an angle, maybe making a 3D thing 2D. It tends to, like, when you abstract something, it makes it kind of like more simple, but also more like kind of symmetric and more like, let's just say, where if you make things like, okay, one thing in art, they might make something look more like a triangle or a sphere more than it is in reality, so they can have it kind of fill out a pattern, because that's part of abstraction too, that you're able to like, that's a big part of it. Like a crystal. A crystal can be like, you can just build the whole thing out of just a simple pattern, repeatable pattern. So that's part of that crystalline beauty of the thing. And so, and like I had said in some other videos, abstraction is more like a function of introversion. When a person is introverted, they tend to like want to come up with this abstraction, this kind of map of reality that they almost cling to more than the actual reality. And then whereas the opposite would be the extrovert, wanting to flow into the world and everything. But so I don't know, I guess I don't have anything more to say, but it's a good that's a good example of like someone enjoying like that abstract beauty. I was also saying in something that someone like a Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, because although he's bad, he kind of has this idea of like this crystalline beauty, thinking like, okay, everything's good as long as if something runs right. Well, that's the thing, crystalline beauty and this abstract beauty, it kind of doesn't really like account for like morality. So you can say, like, it's a beautiful organization because everything flows right and everything, but they're actually doing something bad or something like that, just like I keep my fry pan looking really shiny at Los Pollos Hermanos or that sort of thing, and have this, just that I'm really good at my job. And I said that the way I thought about it is he worships what I call the bootstrap god, of like, as long as he's always like straightening his tie, scrubbing something, whatever, washing his hands the best, then he's always going to be like, come out on top, Anyway, so all right, that's about it for today. Thanks. This 30-day YouTube mini-series is a psychological experiment using Jungian psychology to live better and experience more this summer. I'm not a psychologist, just a layman looking to apply Jungian principles to life. I'm starting with the idea that the unconscious mind is very smart and tells us things. And believing in this, I drove up to Hibbing, Minnesota, and I found that 4 locations in Hibbing, Minnesota corresponded quite well to 4 different principles called the Hibbing Quaternity. The first one is the Hibbing Ghost Town. which the characteristics is you feel the echo of the past as the wind flows down established paths. This represents unconscious voice being in the center of a moving circle, the mother archetype, home, center, castle, etc. Character I'm coming up with here to explain it is Nellie, the ghost sheepdog mom who circles the area, protects and guides. The Greyhound Museum has to do with travel and also the Jungian idea of beauty as a way of mentally feeling your way into physical objects and flowing into life in general, flowing beauty, mentally becoming part of the object. The character here I'm coming up with is Flows With It, which is a Native American cartoon character who has a magic canoe, finds all paths, glides over, portages, flows into life. Now the ore pit, it represents awe, the smallness of the individual, abstraction, and the way to in making the world simpler, more understandable. Actions, the beauty of symmetry, the beauty of maps, beauty of mathematics. And this is supposed to be Laser Nash. Doesn't look like him that much, but anyway, it's like Joh Nash with his cup sending out all these laser beams across, dividing the world, trying to find that order in the chaos from A Beautiful Mind, if you haven't seen that movie. Bob Dylan's home. It represents stories, archetypes, wishing to become someone else. DJ Hat Trick, what he does is he gets people into the groove by putting different hats on and sending people into different paths. It's sort of like the way we do whenever we listen to a song, for example. Here's a simplified view of the quaternity here that I'm going to be using for this 30-day adventure. And this is what it's going to more look like. I'm just going to do a simple sketch that I'll put in the video and then just kind of explain it like on a notepad like this to make it simpler so I can get it done. So I can do a video for 30 days. And so subscribe to get all 30 of those videos.